I'd like to talk about population, proximity to each other, as in population density, because that's a topic that's full of disinformation. And I've talked about this before on my website, actually, quite a lot in past years, not just recently. In past years, I've been going on and on and on and on about how the world is overpopulated, and it is. And I've had discussions, I've tried to, whenever I talk about this in person with people, with acquaintances or friends, I try to have sane discussions on the matter, right? With people where I can actually just talk instead of arguing. And they say, well, surely it's not overpopulated, because when you fly above and you look at the ground, there's only a city here and a city there, and a village here, a village there, and there's lots of green, lots of earth in between them, right? And so some of them say it's likely that the population figures are inflated, and they very well could be. But we have to try to see through the web of disinformation here, because overpopulation is an issue that's being used by the establishment to drive certain policies that are meant to hurt good people. And that's what they do. They try to divide us, to pit us against each other, and to get us to say that a certain group is bad, or that this group is right, and so on and so forth. So here's what I think is going on. Yes, the world is overpopulated. No, the stuff that you see in the news about overpopulation and the certain policies that are being bandied about, such as by people who tend to delve into this field, like depopulation and sterilization of the population, I think they're scare tactics, and perhaps those programs exist, but they're clearly not put into place, or the discussion around those topics hasn't been started by people who have good intentions. I believe, as I've said for years on my website, that we need to start thinking about decreasing our numbers in a good way, So what I've advocated for was for us to begin to, each one of us, to begin to have less children. And well, I, for one, my wife and I, we chose to have one child. We have a daughter. It's exactly what we wanted, a daughter. And that's it. We're not going to have any more children. Because if each new family chooses to have only one child, then the world's population will decrease naturally over time without anyone forcing anyone to do anything. It will simply go down nicely, quietly, slowly, and a lot of good things will come out of this. For one thing, the world will not be overpopulated, so our resources will whatever resources we still have left on the earth after this incredible abuse, this ravaging of the earth during the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, our resources will last a lot longer. With less people in the world, there will be less conflict, hopefully. Right? resources that are scarce and that are very precious, such as fresh water, good fresh water, will last for longer. Less sprawling cities will mean more reforestation, more buffer space between cities that allows nature to regrow there, and allows wildlife to flourish. And these buffer zones are very important in terms of ecosystems because they allow for the filtration of the air, the filtration of the water. They're so vital. And so that's one simple thing that we can do, right? We can begin to have less children. Preferably one per family, because that's enough. Having one child per family also allows the parents to leave all of that they've accumulated to that single child. And that is so important in so many ways, and perhaps it demands a separate video. But having all of the wealth, whatever you want to call it, all of the good things that the parents have worked for all their life go to a single child instead of being divided among children, means that property or that domain, whatever you want to call it, the house, the property around it, the things that they've put together, that they've bought, that they've acquired and taken good care of, are no longer divided amongst multiple siblings. And so a property that the parents worked so hard to put together, to buy maybe from different people, will stay as a single property. It will not, the things that happen today will no longer happen, such as a beautiful single large property in the span of maybe 50 years is now divided amongst a ridiculous amount of siblings till, a few hectares in a single house now turns over the span of maybe even less than 50 years, like 20, 30 years, turns into 10 or 12 little tiny houses with little tiny plots of land around them, and all of the siblings arguing with each other over, yeah, but the fence like half a meter on my property, and shit like that, arguments like that have no place anywhere, especially in families. So that's another good thing about it, about having just one child, amongst the many other benefits that I'm sure you can think of as well, such as it's less insane for the parents to take care of that child instead of having to take care of 4 or 5 screaming siblings and fighting with each other. You take care of one child. You can make sure that that one child is properly educated and loved and taken care of and nurtured. There's no rivalry among siblings because, oh, you love that one more than me, and you always punish me more than you punish the other one, and you bought him a prettier toy. All of that garbage goes away. So it's beautiful. When you look at all the arguments that you see in society and in religion for having tons of children, they're always put forth by what I call these brainwashing trusts. It's in Romania, for example, during communist times, they wanted labor hands, right? They wanted cheap labor. And so the communist regime in power at the time encouraged people to have more children by paying them bonuses for every extra child, because they wanted to have workers in the factories and workers in the fields to grow the economy, to grow the industry, which is another bullshit, just absolute ridiculous theory. Now, who else advocates for tons of children? Well, there are these religions that engage, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone with this, right? Like I said in one of my previous videos, there are lots of good people who go to church, but you have to question your church's policies, your church's dogma, your religion's extra biblical beliefs, or the ones that don't necessarily make sense. And you look at these churches that advocate large families, and who are they? Do I have to name them for you? Look around. Are you part of one of those churches? Why do they do that? Because they want to grow the membership of the church. They want that tithe money coming in from multiple families. They brainwash you into thinking that having a large family is a blessing from God. Certainly, a child that's healthy in body and healthy in mind is a blessing from God. But that doesn't mean you need to go and turn your wife into a baby factory, right? As I call these women in Romanian, and this may be an offensive term to some who speak Romanian, I call it's half Romanian, half English. I call them țâță factories, right? Because all they do is they suckle children. They just go like this and they carry them around the house and they're suckling. Every single year of their productive life, they're suckling children. It's insane. Stop. So, a child, a healthy child is a blessing from God. Okay, I agree with you on that one. But you shouldn't go around having tons of children, because you have to look around you at the earth. Can the infrastructure, the human-built infrastructure, support these extra people without having to sprawl out and just infect every piece of virgin nature or untouched environment around you with just concrete tumors, right? With just nasty stuff, just houses with lots of shit around them and tiny little yards with crap piled everywhere around the house, and just people yelling and screaming at each other, and children yelling and screaming, I want to play with that, I want to play with that. Is that what the earth needs? Is that what the human race needs? More of the shit of the human race. Is that what we need? So you have to think about those things. You have to think about the load, the needs of human being, and the sucking from the earth of all of those resources over a lifetime. Do you really want to put that extra stress on a planet that's already overloaded with this shit? And I'm sorry if I sound really bitter, but I'm so angry about this stuff. I can't believe the amount of crap that people just feel entitled to in their lives, and they just feel like, oh, I deserve this and I deserve that just because I'm living and breathing. You deserve nothing. You have to earn it, okay? What you get at birth is you get a body, you get a soul. You get the chance to breathe. Whatever happens after that is up to you, up to yourself. You have to earn those things. You have to work for them. You can't just go through life thinking everything belongs to you and you can just take and take and take and take and take. You entitled little shits. I mean, just, oh. So, yeah. Sorry for getting angry here, but there's so much of this crap going around. It's like a disease infecting humanity. So let's talk about the Georgia Guidestones as well, because if I touch on overpopulation, you kind of have to go with that as well. People think that these nasty aliens or these nasty groups of humans who want to depopulate the earth so they can control it better, put those guidestones there. And it's a nuts theory. It's just insane, because it's the exact opposite. And that's a great example of the disinformation going about these days. It is the exact opposite. The assholes running the show right now on Earth want the exact opposite. They want an overpopulated Earth because they believe humans to be cattle, to be exploited. They want as many of you as possible. Don't worry. When you get to be too much of a pain for them, they'll depopulate you, but they won't ask your permission. They won't raise a monument to this and keep it around and clean the graffiti off of it and have people arguing about that monument. They'll just wipe you out. They won't ask for your permission. They won't debate it. They'll just do it. Do you understand? Do you honestly think that if there are absolutely evil aliens somewhere on Earth working together with this cabal of people, that they would ask your permission for anything, that they would let you debate the issue, that they wouldn't just do it like they already do, like they've already been doing? So I don't think these guide stones were raised by those people. I think they were raised by either enlightened human beings who want the best for the human race, or, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know them personally, so I wouldn't say maybe they want the best. But they want the good for the human race, and they certainly want the good for the planet. Because the planet cannot handle the amount of population that we have right now. Look at what's going on around you. Look at the large mega cities. Look at how they sprawl out, and they're just these insane concrete tumors. They're infecting all of the nature around them. Look at them. Do you honestly think the surface of the earth can take house after house after house after house after house after house, or skyscraper? Do you think this sort of arrangement, this human contrivance, this human filth is what it is, do you think they can take this garbage, these tumors, and allow them to sprawl all over the face of our planet, everywhere, with no natural buffers in sight, and that somehow the planet will be healthy and will not die, taking us down with it? I want you to think about that really carefully, because whenever I see a huge city and I look at it from afar, or I go in that city and I see all of this human filth, because the human species is a dirty, dirty race of people. Most people smell terribly, and most people are just filthy in the way they treat their house and the way they treat their yards and the way they treat their properties, and so they litter everywhere. There's tons of filth everywhere. And so I go in these places and I am so disgusted by what I see. And I just want to wipe them out. But thank goodness in human form I don't do what I want to do. I don't act upon that. And this is something I discovered in my regression therapy sessions, where I looked at what I am in non-human form, because it would not be a pretty sight for the human race. But let's get back to being positive here and and talk about what we can do to fix the situation on human terms. We have to slowly, and I say slowly because I don't want it to be a sudden depopulation where people go nuts with fear and with pain and suffering. Although if it were to happen that way, it wouldn't be planned by the good guys, right? You'd have to realize that something like that would be triggered by the bad guys, for whatever reason, maybe punishment, maybe retribution for having dared to speak out against them or raise up against them. I don't know. I don't know what's being planned, but we'll find out soon enough, won't we? You have to try to see through this information. And this is why I make these videos. I'm trying to get you to see things from a different point of view, from a saner point of view. And I'm not saying I'm completely sane. I try to stay sane. I try to read as much as I can, and I try to make sense as much as I can from what I see. And as a human being here, because this is me in human form talking to you. We are unfortunately behind this veil that's put around us at birth. So we cannot see beyond. We can pierce it here and there, and we can have glimpses. But this veil is in place, unfortunately. And so we can only see through a fog. Whether that fog is disinformation, or whether that fog is simply our own mental fog, or whether that fog is being induced somehow by the powers that be, I don't know. I'm not sure about those things, but what I do know is that there's a fog, and it's really hard to cut through it and try to make sense of what's going on without buying into the MSM, the mainstream stuff being pushed by the MSM, which is clearly an ad campaign. And we can definitely see that now, even more than we've ever seen it before. So be thankful for that. Be thankful that nowadays we can actually start to get a sense of the truth, more of a sense of the truth, or of the fact that that we're being manipulated than before. Before, in past decades and centuries, we'd simply buy into it wholesale. We'd just go, oh yeah, sure. Give me more of that. Give me like a whole container of it. Yeah, give me more of that. I'll buy what you're selling. But nowadays we can actually step back and go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, wait, that doesn't sound right. Thank God for that. And I want more of you to do that. Do that with my videos as well. I don't mind it at all. Examine them through the most critical lens that you can examine them through. You can call me cuckoo if you want. You can say that I've gone off my rails. You're entitled to do that. It is your right as a human being with a free will and a free choice and free speech. We should all have free speech. That's a very basic human right. Go ahead and judge me if you want, and it's fine. Perhaps someday you'll come out to my side of things, perhaps not. But I keep looking at the screen here, and I'm coming up on 20-something minutes, 28, 29 minutes here, so I want to try to wrap things up. But let's talk about population density or proximity, which is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, because I require, being what I am, a lot of distance between me and other people. It is a necessity for me. It may not be a necessity for you. You may be more social than I am, but I cannot be very social. It is a requirement for me that I be at distance from people. And so this is one reason that I was very glad when the quarantine hit and when we had this social distancing. It's because finally, I could finally request, or not even have to request it anymore. The distance from me would finally be respected. People would finally keep their distance. And I wouldn't have to tell them, could you please step away? Could you please give me some room? And have them look at me in weird ways, like I was insane or I was completely rude. But each one of you, I want you to think about the amount of personal space that you need. Not only physical distance between you and other members of your family or neighbors or people in the marketplace or in stores, but what's really important here is what I'm trying to get at, is the distance between you and your neighbors, because they're there all the time. So how close do you want your house from your neighbors? And I realize there may be nothing that you can do right now, but in the future you may have the opportunity to do something about it. And at that point, I want you to know what you want. Because right now people tend to crowd around in these apartment buildings, these tiny apartment buildings, these tiny houses on tiny plots of land, and then they're driven completely nuts by their neighbors. And I've written about this as well on my website, and at the time I was thinking, well, maybe plots of land that are around 1,000 square meters might be enough for towns. I realize in large cities, apartment buildings will still be the norm for some time, and that is very unfortunate. But it is what it is. People have bought into those things, and until they fall down, they're living in them. And until the mentality of people changes to the point where they realize crowding around in apartment buildings does nothing for their personal development and does nothing for their peace of mind, but only gets them irritated. It's just like this base level of irritation that rises from something that's low in the countryside to something very high in the city, and you get accustomed to it and you think it's the norm there as well. And you can only see how fucked up the situation is when you go out in the countryside and you spend some time in nature away from people. That's when you go, oh my God, this is what it's like to not be driven nuts by your neighbors. Yeah, that's what it's like for sure. It's a good feeling once you get used to it. It's a good feeling to not have some fucking idiot pound you through the walls with this dumb music. It's a great feeling to just listen to the breeze blowing through the trees. It's a great feeling to just hear the birds chirping. It's a great feeling to not have to hear your neighbor's insane dog barking at some fucking fly on the wall. It's a wonderful feeling. So I want you to think about that, because at some point in the future, when the human race gets more sane, if we get to that point without destroying each other, you might be able to make a choice where you get more space between you and the next person. What is that distance for you? And right now, and I think I'm going to stretch into more than 30 minutes here, and I apologize for that, but I hope these videos are useful to you. At some point in the future, you may get the chance to pick, and I want you to think about that distance. What is the distance between you and your neighbor that keeps you as sane and as mentally balanced as humanly possible? What is it for you? And this will differ from person to person, obviously. Some of you are more social. You like being around other people. You like hearing your neighbors' din, the noise that they make. You like that background noise. You even like living next to the streets where you hear all the people walking up and down on the sidewalk next to your house, or the cars driving up and down. You like that. If you like that, then that's fine. But those of you that don't like it, think about that distance. What is it? What is the optimum distance for you? And for me, right now, I would like to amend what I previously said, that 1,000 square meters might be enough for most people. Frankly, for me, it's hectares of land. Just a huge plot of land where I can be in the middle of it, and there's this huge physical, geographical buffer even between me and other people. And it's not possible for me right now to do that. There just isn't a huge plot of land in Romania that I can just get right now. When I look at what's available and when I look at my pocketbook, the things don't mash up. It is what it is, you know. All the huge plots of land already belong to other people. And there's this law in Romania right now that they're fiddling with. They're going back and forth on it, but they're not really changing the basic terms of it, where you cannot buy land that's outside a city or a village. They will literally not allow you to buy land because they want to crowd you into these places for some damn reason. So even if I had the money and wanted to, I couldn't buy a huge plot of land somewhere. But my wife and I are looking into that, and we're seeing what we can do. And to get back to what I think is the optimum right now, and what is the doable also, is perhaps, I'll use a bike as an example. Perhaps a good measurement of the distance between my neighbors and I would be maybe a 5 or 10 minute bike ride. Just a leisurely bike ride, 5 minutes away or 10 minutes away, maybe even 15 minutes away if you can do it. If you can swing it in terms of the property, that would be an ideal situation. Because if you have quiet neighbors, if they're a 5 minute, 10 minute bike ride away, chances are they're not going to be bothering you. But if you have fucked up neighbors, maybe even that won't do it. And I got a comment recently on one of my videos from somebody who moved into a log cabin outside of a city, obviously not in Romania, somewhere in another country maybe. I think he was from Canada or the United States somewhere. And he said, I've been enjoying this quiet, living in this log cabin for years, and I've loved it. And now some dumb fuck, I'm calling him a dumb fuck, he called him by a more reasonable term, moved into a house that's about 200 yards away from me or 250 yards away from me, and he plays this loud music all day. And I've talked with him, and he's being unreasonable. He said to me, I told him, look, you're driving me nuts, please stop it. And his response was, well, there are no laws against this here because we're outside the city, so you can just deal with it. So yeah, this fellow now, this person who has been enjoying his time in nature for a number of years, living away from people, is now being driven slowly insane by this fucknut who's playing heavy metal music all day long in his other house. And he doesn't know what to do about it. And I told him, just build a small EMP device, go blow his speakers into smithereens, burn a circuitry. What are you going to do when you're being driven insane by somebody? So you try not to resort to physical violence. Maybe you don't have the resources to move somewhere else, so you don't want to screw up your life and move somewhere else again and build another log cabin or another house. What are you going to do? You have to try to resolve the situation somehow. You can either sue that person, or you can maybe try to build a small EMP and go burn their speaker wiring. That's up to you, up to each one of you. What can you do if the police won't do anything? And this is why I say physical distance, when you appreciate the quiet of nature. That sound is my radiators heating up. When you need a lot of quiet, a lot of silence, you have to find out the distance that's needed between you and the other people, so that they don't drive you insane, so that they don't ruin your internal balance, so that you can appreciate life and love the life that you have, instead of wishing you were dead or wishing you were somewhere else all the time. This is really important as human beings. And this can only happen. One of the preconditions for this is when the planet isn't overpopulated. Because when it's overpopulated, you are then forced to live in cages, which is what's going on in the ridiculously overpopulated cities like Hong Kong, where people live in these insanely tiny spaces, or in these Chinese factory towns where they live in these big rooms separated by cage walls, I guess you could call them, where they have a bed, they have maybe like a fold-out table, and they hang their clothes above their bed, and that's it. They crowd in there and they sleep in there and then they get out and work all day, and they have no other place to go to except maybe a park, but they come back to that cage at night. And that is a horrible way to live as a human being. It is absolutely horrible. I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody. It's worse than prison. And yet that's what happens when the world is overpopulated. Please think very carefully about the choices that you make, especially when it comes to the amount of children, the number of children that you want to have. It is for the good of the human race and the good of the planet that we have to start decreasing the numbers of people. Because this is insane. It's insanity to think that, and this is the prevailing thought right now, that you can go around in life and you can eat your meat every day and you can have your disposable goods and throw them away every day, and you can just drive your car mindlessly from here and there, crowding the streets and generating pollution. And I realize that pollution is actually intended. See my previous video. But it's insane to think you can go through life like that, buying clothes, throwing them away after a short while, buying more clothes, throwing those away. It's nuts to think we can do that. We can all do that, all 8 billion of us, or however many people there are in the world, without repercussions, without consequences. That cannot be. It will not stand. Do you understand me? It will not stand. Anyone who tells you otherwise is brainwashing you. And I'm saying this again, so I drive this point home to you. Believe you me, the bad guys want the world overpopulated because it creates scarcity, it creates conflict, it gives them more bodies to exploit. It allows them to drive up the prices for everything. The bad guys want tons of people in the world arguing, fighting with each other. They want bloodshed. They love conflict. They love wars for a multitude of reasons. It is actually the sane people who are advocating for less population. But they get blamed. They get called insane. They get called all kinds of names that only the bad guys deserve to be called. But what the bad guys are doing and have been doing is they have these false, fake campaigns where, again, they put up these fake fronts. Remember what I said in my previous video, where yes, we need to take care of our resources, we need to eat less meat, we need to do this and that and that. But behind those are a whole bunch of nasty agendas where they want to concentrate you in the cities where you will argue and fight and drive up the prices and just have insanely shitty lives. They want to keep you away from nature so you don't infect it. They want you to, you have to see through the shit. I don't want to just tell you all of these things bullet by bullet by bullet because you'll think I'm cuckoo. I want you to discover them. I want you to do your homework. And as long as I'm talking about numbers here, you can look at the view counts on my videos. You can clearly see that not a lot of people watch them. And I'm not making them for a whole lot of people. I'm making them for the very few of you that watch them. Because I'm not interested in saving the human race. We cannot do that. It does not deserve to get saved. Most people on the planet are so beyond salvation that they deserve to just get wiped out by whatever comes next. And believe me, a culling will come. A culling of the population will come. It is in the works. So I'm not trying to save the masses. I'm trying to open up the eyes of those very few that happen to stumble upon my videos and happen to stumble upon this point in the video, which very few people will do. And that's intended. It's intended by me, and it's intended by the powers that be at Google or YouTube, whatever, who are perhaps shadow banning me. I'm not sure. And it doesn't matter. Right? Because it's kind of weird that for a channel with over 20,000 subscribers, I get these very tiny view counts. But it's fine with me. It's fine. I get to talk to less people, hopefully more sane people, more articulate people, more rational people, and you will appreciate my messages more. So it's fine. So yeah, that's been my message for today. Overpopulation, population density, proximity. Very, very important subjects when it comes to the health of the human race and the health of the planet on which we are so dependent, without which we cannot exist. Don't think for a moment that being able to escape this planet and colonize some other poor planet will solve any of the problems that exist here on this planet. No. We'll simply take them with us and reproduce them there, replicate them there, and it'll be yet another shit show. So unless we take the time, unless we put in the effort to solve, and maybe this is the wrong sign, but it does involve a bit of this, a bit of the gritting of the teeth and a bit of determination to get to the point where we're like this. A transparent world. A beautiful, clean world that you can look at and enjoy. A rational, sane world full of healthy, sane people that appreciate what they have. To get to this point, it requires a bit of this. And this is the period that we're going through right now. This is it. It's the culling. The trial and tribulation period that will clear out, bring to light and clear out a lot of the garbage that's been around for so long. And some will not take it. Some will not be able to take it. They'll simply leave. And it's a great period for them to end their contract. And what I mean is the contract they signed when they incarnated into this world. That's okay. End it, move on, and let the people that want to live here in peace. But that's perhaps a subject for another video. Yeah. If you got this far, thanks for watching. Till next time.